Hey Tim,
Rolling.
Roland, how you
I
doing, man?
hope. I'm good. I'm good. How was your week?
It was a busy week at work. I think it's like the last
Mm,
week before like things went into holiday mode.
mm,
So it was a little busy, but
hmm
other than
Yeah.
that, things were trying to chug along. How about you? How was your week?
Well, I was off. I
That's
was
right.
on vacation for a whole week, and
Nice.
well, the government does not recommend you doing this, but but I went to like different city just to look at some houses, and that was good.
Yeah,
That was good. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
good. It must have
yeah.
been nice to, like you said. I mean, I guess so long as you guys were like being safe and smart about it, I guess going to another town isn't too big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to buy a house in a different town,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
I have a pretty good reason
Yeah,
why
yeah, yeah,
I
for
didn't
sure.
just go there for fun. So I hopefully
Exactly.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
good, man. I'm glad. And
yeah,
I hope, like, um, you were able to achieve, like, you went in with a target, and
yeah,
hopefully you kind of were able to hit those targets.
yeah, yeah. It was a good trip. Yeah,
Okay, that's good, man.
yeah.
Alrighty, so today is what? December
20th.
20th. Okay,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's been a lot long, but it's been about a month. It's been a week now, I think, or a couple of
hmm
days since the
Mm,
official electoral college,
mm,
um, what's it say, verdict
yeah,
that it has been officially announced. Everything is like everything, all the recounts or whatever, that the next
yeah.
president of the United States of America, Canada's
hmm
biggest buddy, is going to be
Yeah.
Biden. um, so, I mean, obviously, like I mean, this year, on top of the COVID stuff, on top of everything
mm,
else, this election was like another big thing playing in the news cycles.
hmm
Leading up to it, I mean, I don't know how much of it you followed, but did you kind of have an idea of how things were going to turn out come election
Yeah.
night?
Right. So, it was crazy because like we were under lockdown, so all the news we got was about election, even though we're in Canada, it's all about like US
Mm-hmm,
election
mm-hmm.
or like what's gonna happen with COVID, basically. Like that was it, right?
That's just
So
been life. Yeah.
yeah, like literally. So I think even for Canadians, we've been getting a lot of exposure
Mm-hmm.
or on like the US election. So, but here's the thing. So like just getting exposure from the media, I obviously thought um like the left, so Joe Biden was gonna win. Just because like, the media is so catered towards more like they I guess it's more left. They have tendency to be more liberal and left and favoring the Democrats over.
You think so, eh?
I think I don't know. Maybe
Mm.
like but like it's like a lot of the news are very much like it's like, oh, Donald Trump's not doing a good job. Like he messed up on this one, he messed up on that one, and then um like I think a lot of it was like favoring towards Joe Biden.
Okay.
So yeah. But what did you think?
Well, a couple of things. So before going into what I think, so how much
Mm,
of it is favoring one person versus just calling someone out on their inability to like get like stuff done,
mm,
right? Like
yeah,
if you're saying that this person did not do a good job or this person
right.
didn't do this, is
Yeah,
that like that's just calling a spade like that's just calling a spade versus
right.
a particular lean. But no, I guess we can talk a little bit. For me, honestly, I had no idea. I genuinely didn't know, and the reason why I say that is, in your like in even in the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, there have been a, there have been many times where leading up to a big uh, democratic decision,
Mm,
the polling leading up to it never like it said one thing and then the final election
yeah,
said another thing.
yeah.
So the three key examples that come to mind, um, or the three is the first one is Brexit vote. So leading up to Brexit vote, I think the polls were like it was always going to be close, but I think the polls had suggested it was going to go one way, but then Brexit actually happened. Number one. The American election 4 years ago, leading up to the polls indicated that it would be like a big win for Hillary. Obviously, didn't happen.
Yeah.
And even the Canadian election, not the one that we had a year ago, but I think the one previously, leading up to the election, like during the election campaign, if I remember correctly, Stephen Harper's Conservatives were running for re-election, and I think the NDP were the official opposition. And then during the election campaign, at the start anyway, the Liberals were kind of in the third, and that's kind of how it looked. And then I think next thing you know, the Liberals won government. So all that's to say, like, I think going into things when it comes to polling and stuff like that, I think recent history to me suggests that like you can't rely on the polling. Like it might say one thing, but it who knows?
Right.
Leading into it, I really had no idea.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I think for me, like again, kind of trying to follow along with it. Like I think there was an idea of what there were predictions of what might happen. So because there was a big component of mail-in voting this time, there was going to be the predictions were that the night of the election it was going to look like it was going one way, but then as the mail-in votes kind of came in, it might kind of go the other way. So to answer your question, I don't really know, but it sounds like for you, like you had a very like you're like, oh, I think it's going to go this way.
Well, even the polls, right? Like people were very skeptical about the polls. And first of all, Hope, okay, when people like I've gotten calls before, I think before Canadian election, and then they called like, what was the question? I think they were asking about not directly, but indirectly asking who I was gonna vote for, right? Like, or which policy I'm in favoring of, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was just always wondering, like, who does polls?
I think I think there are companies who make a living out of like polling. I think at least in the States, I think there are companies that like their job is to like come up with polling questions and they do that. I think even within political, again, I'm just guessing it, but even within political parties, they have teams who are dedicated to like try to get feelers and like try to like put survey questions together. So I think there's a variety of groups.
I wonder who do they target is another question.
So I think that's kind of where the discrepancy might come. So I think if you're a polling company, I think you try to target, like you like pick 1,000 people, but with 1,000 people, you try to represent what the demographic of the entire country looks like. But I think, again, from the little that I understand, like it's obviously not a perfect science. It's going to be dependent on who actually picks up their phone and who actually answers their phone.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to exclude people who don't have cell phones, who might not have like access to a phone. So it's an imperfect science. And like I said, I think it's like I said, like it's like the last couple of years for me personally, like you can only take polls with like, it's good. It's a good information, but it doesn't mean what the poll says is going to happen.
Exactly. But this time, they were like, like with Hillary, the margins were, within the plus minus the standard deviation of, these polls. But with Joe Biden, there was like, well, like he has such a big lead, even with the margin of error, he would most likely win.
It's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I think you're right, because I think a lot of polls did have him leading, but for me personally, I just kind of like, I was like, I kind of ignored those. I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And I say that, and again, I think part of it is like, I still remember distinctly watching 4 years ago, the night of the election, like it was almost as if it was so certain that it was going to go one way, or at least from what I remember reading, and then just being so shocked that it went the other. It just shocked. I'm like, oh my god, like
we're like, he won.
yeah.
Oh my god, he won.
Yeah. So
that was crazy.
Yeah. No, I was like, I remember just being totally like what the fuck,
Uh-huh.
like just
Yeah.
being blown away. But yeah, no, I mean, the other thing that like kind of has been like a big another factor, another
Mm.
side effect of 2020 was,
Mm-hmm.
and how it impacted the voting was,
Mm.
there was an increase in people doing mail-in voting.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on like your observations?
So first of all,
Mhm.
I guess there is a security reason why we can't vote through our phone or some kind of technology solution. Although I feel like they could use biometric to, facilitate it, but I guess not all population have access to cell phone. The cell phone that is compatible with whatever software or application they're going to use.
Mhm.
Um, so I know there were some concerns around like mail-in voting. There could be fraud, right? Because
Oh
like,
yeah.
and like Trump's been saying like, oh, he had a graph that was hilarious. He had a graph, and it was like, oh, like what was it, 13 hour 13. All of a sudden, you find 5,000 votes of Joe Biden. All of a sudden. And then,
Really?
so yeah, he was been trying to make a proof like there was some fraud because it was mail-in voting. People can easily swap it out.
Can they? Again, I don't.
I don't know. I
Okay. Yeah.
mean, so I think it just opens up more like, potential like people who think there could be like conspiracy and there could be potentially fraud. Like it just opens up more opportunity for that just because it's like these people are not coming there with their ID and someone's actually checking that that is the person, and
Mhm.
then they go and vote themselves, which seems like there's like a less chance of someone could do something and to manipulate your vote, right? But with the mail-in vote, I guess like people could argue like, oh, what if mails get lost? Or there were many categories where like I guess the mail-in vote could be invalid, like the signatures on one,
Yeah.
like if it's damaged and
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think a couple things. I think like first of all, like, mail-in voting has been around for like in the States since like the
Mm,
Civil War times. Like it's nothing new. Like it's
mm,
like the ability for people to do it like has been around. And I think the rules surrounding mail-in voting is kind of state by state, I think county by county. So like some states, I remember reading that like if you're registered to vote, the state government will send you a form automatically to be like, hey, if you want to fill this form out, sign it, submit it, you're good to go.
mm,
Other states, the person needs to request a mail-in vote form. So there's
mm,
different rules, but I bring that up to say that like the mail-in voting process has been around for a long time.
mm,
And the reason I bring that up is like to say that like there are, again, the little that I know, that there are checks and like there are checks in place in the mail-in voting process to mitigate, to make sure that like, hey, look, if you say your name's Bob, your signature looks like this. When you submit your mail-in vote, does it say your name's Bob, and does your signature look like this? Like
yeah.
there's like these checks in place, because again, this isn't the
Mm,
first time people have done the mail-in voting. So I think there's a couple of things. I think on one hand, I think the idea of mail-in voting is great. Like if you can't go to the voting station,
mm,
having like, in my opinion, reducing the friction with which you could allow people to vote is always a good thing.
right.
Making it easier for people to vote is obviously a great thing. Obviously, that needs to be balanced with like making sure you have the necessary checks in place to make sure the integrity of the system is there. Um, but yeah, no, mail-in voting is a good thing. I think like the idea that like it can be um, like used in like nefarious ways, like anything can be used in nefarious ways.
Mm,
Has voter fraud been like done before? Yeah, it has. But I think to the scale with which people were saying it was happening, I think from what I
yeah.
understand, the studies and the research indicates that that's just not like, it's a very very like 0.00 like of a fraction
Yeah.
of voter frauds.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know, like, what do you like? Did you have any thoughts on the whole? Because that was another big thing. So, it was mail-in
Yeah,
voting
yeah,
was
yeah.
one thing, and then voter fraud
Yeah.
was another big
No,
one.
I completely agree. I think um, based on the number of votes that came in, even if there was a fraud, I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the voting.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
so. So now that we know the result, I don't think it would have impacted the election that much.
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like it wouldn't have like the results, but like
Yeah.
even still, like there was just no evidence to suggest that there was
Yeah.
widespread fraud, right?
It was just yeah. When
Yeah.
he came out to the conference with like that graph, that was hilarious. He just comes out.
Really? I don't think I saw that
Yeah,
one.
it's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
he just came out with the graph, and it was like Joe Biden voted in like one of the states, and it just had this huge spike all of a sudden. He was like, oh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's like because I think leading up to election day, like from the mouth, like from President Trump, he talked about voter. Like I think it was something that he like for the year leading up to it, maybe even
yeah,
before. It was something that he would constantly bring up. And I think part of that was, maybe he genuinely thought it was a big like issue. Who
hmm.
knows? But I think there's something to be said where like I think part of that is if you tell people that something is fraudulent
Hmm.
and the results don't come your way, you have already kind of like baking in an excuse
Hmm.
leading up to the actual result. So like
Hmm.
for the entire year, you tell everyone that like, you know, this is bullshit's going on, and
Hmm.
then the results don't come your way. You can be like, see, hey man, you can't believe in the results. It's a bunch of fraud.
Yeah.
I think there's like trying to like establish like that thought in his in a lot of people's heads. I think that's one of the reasons why he might have kind of gone down that route. But
Yeah.
I don't know. But like I said, I think ultimately it wouldn't have mattered.
I don't think so. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Is it I found it very fascinating that it got a lot of play
Yeah.
in the media. Like
Yeah.
especially given that, like I said, research suggests that it's not a
Mm.
big, like it's not a thing.
Hmm.
So a lot of energy and a lot of time was put towards that. Um,
Hmm. I think he might have lost some of his votes because he was so against mail-in votes. So like, some of his um the voters that would have voted for him probably maybe they were thinking of doing mail-in votes, but then he's like coming out and saying like go in person and vote. And if
oh,
someone doesn't actually feel comfortable going and voting because they might have health condition or other things, then maybe they would have been like, oh, it's fraudulent anyway, I don't trust this process, I'm not going to vote at all, right? Like that could have happened too. Hmm.
I guess that could have. That's a good point. So you think
Yeah.
it kind of would have hurt his, like, instead of helping,
Yeah.
he might have kind of shot himself in his own foot, kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it's just like you said, it's better if more people vote.
I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny to say that. I think from the thing that I've read, like in the United States, in a lot of parts of the country, whether it's like gerrymandering or whether it's like not funding like
Mm.
election sites or whatever, it seems like there is, uh, like I said, like on one hand, you want to make voting as easy as possible, as I mentioned this,
Mm.
right? But the other side of it is the thought that people could take advantage of the voting system by like,
Mm.
you know, messing with it, saying that you're someone else and voting twice or voting 3 times, and that's a
Mm.
big deal because you don't like having a strong voting system, like a solid foundation, making sure like the infrastructure is legit. Like that's very important in a democratic society. If you
Mhm.
can't trust that the votes that you get are legit, if you can't trust, that everyone that can vote is voting, and if you can't trust the fact that like, oh, a bunch of people who've been dead but they're voting, and that's for like, if you can't trust that, then that kind of takes away, like that is a foundation of like a democracy, right? So I understand making sure that you have the right checks in place. I get that, but that can't be used as an excuse to make it harder for people to vote. Like it's a
Right.
balancing act, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the last couple of years, in the last little while, like forever, like in the United States, I think it's well documented that like the African American vote, like people in power have done a lot to kind of reduce their ability to vote, make it harder for them to vote, which is wrong, which is wrong. And I think that if you were to balance the two, I think I think studies would indicate that there have been more of an effort to make it harder for people to vote who are Black or lower income, and that's been a bigger like issue than voter fraud.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But it's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in Canada, for me at least, like it was so easy to vote. They had a voting station in the party room of my condo, so I didn't even have to go anywhere.
That's fantastic.
I
so what did you
just went downstairs, used my fob, get into the party room, and then they're like,
"That's great.
What's your name?" And then that was it. It was so easy.
That's so good. I think that's great. I voted so since I've become a Canadian citizen, I voted like a handful of times, and it's cool. It's like for me, I get filled with like the civic pride whenever I've done it. It's only like a handful of times, but it's like, it is like you show up, you show your ID, cross your name off, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
So how do you think? So this election's happened. I feel like, by the way, like when was the election? Like November 2nd or like 3rd or something like that. I feel like every day after that until like last week, like on my phone, like a news thing would pop up, an alert would be like, oh, Biden has been confirmed as president. I feel like I've never been in a situation where a person was confirmed to be president so many times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like this state kind of finished accounting. Biden's been confirmed. Then the next day, this state, Biden's confirmed. Like, how many times can you fucking confirm a dude? Like, it's
Alaska took a long time. No,
I think
Alaska took a really long time. Yeah.
Well, it's cold up there. You know, you gotta like, the fingers. You know, I get it. I get it. How do you think? So what happens? So I mean, what happens next is, I guess, like the president is sworn in
inauguration.
The inauguration, I think, is in January. It's going to be very interesting to kind of see what happens next for President Trump and his family, because it seems like there's like a lot of, from what I've read, and again, I haven't been following it too much, but like him being the president, him holding the power of the office of the president kind of gave him, he was a president. It comes with powers, it comes with whatever. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen to him once he's no longer the president. Whether it's financial record disclosures, whether it's legal, whatever. I'm very curious to see like just what happens next for him. For Biden, he's the next president, and the United States will kind of do what's going to happen. What do you think is going to be the impact for us?
For Canadians?
Yeah.
I see.
What happens next for us?
Next for us? I don't think too much, in my opinion. I feel like economy might do a little better.
Okay.
But in terms of like trade deals and such, like Biden might be more open to going back to how we used to have these trade deals that were not necessarily strong-armed as much by the Trump. But we'll see. I don't know, because Trump just like made some new deals between like Canada and Mexico and US.
I mean, he was the three countries we this was a couple of years ago. We used to have NAFTA, but then like
Yeah.
we re-signed it and it's now called
Yeah.
something else, USMCA. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's called. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So maybe Biden will be more willing to revisit.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's although like I think during the election campaign, I think I've read when it comes to our relationship with the states, whether
Mm,
it was Trump that was reelected or whether it was
mm,
Biden that was reelected, I think both of those candidates had very like strong like buy American policies. Like
mm,
I think they both kind of were campaigning on let's build manufacture in America and like that kind of stuff, which isn't good for Canada. Which isn't good for
mm,
Canada. Whether Biden kind of carries out with all of that and to what extent he does with Canada will be very interesting
mm,
because both in whether Biden was saying like very protectionist ideas, it's not good for us. Trump was saying the
mm,
same thing, it's not good for us. But we'll see what happens. I remember the other thing, at least from a Canadian perspective, I think when Biden wasn't campaigning, he was against a couple of big oil pipelines,
mm,
which, if you're in Alberta, if you work in the
mm.
oil field, isn't necessarily a good thing. Um, so I think it'll be interesting kind of see what happens. But I think regardless of what happens, I think the biggest win from Canada's perspective is you will now get to deal with a president who isn't volatile, isn't going to try to like strong arm their biggest, like their
Yeah.
big trading partner. Like you get a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit of stability and you kind of get a little, like you understand, like you're dealing with someone who's kind of on the same page as you, right? And you
Yeah.
get to negotiate in a very like, because like Canada and America, we've always had these like
Yeah.
trade disagreements, and that's normal. Like
Yeah.
that's a normal part of process between
Uh-huh.
trading companies. But you're gonna be dealing with someone on the other side of the table who isn't just gonna like one day be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
good, good, good. Next day be like, fuck this shit. Like
Yeah.
let's just
On
throw a big
Twitter.
tariff on you. Yeah, you can't deal with that. Like you can't you can't you. It's impossible to have productive discussions when you're kind of always reacting to the Twitter
Yeah.
account of somebody. Like
Yeah.
so I think from that perspective, from that lens,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be a big
Mm.
win for
Mm.
Canada. So
For him being against the pipeline, was that for environmental reasons?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Biden and one of the big things that they campaigned on is like a green economy, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all that stuff.
They keep saying New Green Deal. I don't know what that is.
It's it's been around for a couple of years, this New Green
Mm.
Deal, and
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of like it's not necessarily like a hard document where you gotta like we're
Yeah.
gonna do
Yeah.
this and this. I think it's just kind of like an overarching like theme and an idea of like what
Mm.
kind of like economy they want to get into.
Mm. Mm.
I just know it's very not controversial, but it's like a hot button thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds good too. It's green. Yeah. Of course.
Well, it again, it depends on who you ask, right? If you are
Yeah.
working in a, like I said, in the oil fields or in a coal mine,
Oh,
and you
no.
start hearing about these, it's like
Yeah. Not great.
that's not great, right? And I think that's important. I think there's parts of the economy, there's parts of any of Canadian economy and the Canadian and the American economy
Yeah.
who over the last couple decades who've fallen kind of behind the rest of the country,
Mhm.
manufacturing, blue collar
Yeah.
folks, and like these people have struggled, have a hard time putting food on the table, which is why I think you have someone like Trump to say like, hey, I hear you, like I understand your struggles, fuck the screw the big rich people, good global
Mhm.
companies. Like there's like a reason why he got so many votes. So when you talk about like any green initiative, it's good. Like I think
Mhm.
getting away from fossil fuels is just good for the planet,
Mhm.
obviously. And transitioning away to a green economy is a good thing, but hopefully we don't leave behind the people who was working in an industry that might not get as much
Yeah.
like investment anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
whether it's retraining them for new skills or investing in other kinds of projects in that area. Like
Yeah.
just making sure we don't leave those people behind, I think is very
Right.
important.
Yeah.
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 So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. And I hope they do get our friends down south get a stimulus package soon, very soon.
Yeah, like I don't understand. So like, what do they get? Like, what did like, do they get
They
like
got
a $600 check?
they got one check. I think that was it. Canadians, it was way better.
Oh, it took
Canadians
like
had
2 seconds.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then like people were definitely covered for at least 3-4 months in
in
the
Canada.
yeah in Canada.
Oh,
Like so, yeah. Like my girlfriend Alice was because she couldn't work,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
she was getting the basically unemployment checks and
Those serve checks.
yeah serve checks, and they were good. It was like very easy, like you said, and
Yeah,
they were coming very steadily,
yeah,
and you just had to like let them know like what the situation
yeah,
is and
yeah.
etc. And yeah, that's it.
I think this pandemic has shown, at least in Canada and most of the developed world, and like I said, I know the UK did the same thing. Like once things shut down, I think the UK
Mm,
government was pumping money into people's accounts to make sure that they could continue to
mm,
pay the bills. Kind of same with Canada. I think there's like you can look back on how well our federal government has done. Some things they've done pretty poorly, I think. If you're like a business owner and you
mm,
needed some money, I think the way that the federal government set up, like if you or I needed to get CERB, it's very easy.
mm,
You go online,
mm.
30 seconds. Next week
Yeah,
you're going to get a check. Good stuff, right? But I think
yeah.
the process for a business owner was a little bit more convoluted. I think the
Mm,
approval needed to go through the landlord. So if the
mm,
landlord didn't apply for this money, the business
mm.
wasn't getting it. And I think that caused a lot of
Okay.
like issues, and like businesses were
Yeah.
getting closed. And I bring this up to say that like there's going to be parts that the government did well, and there's going to be parts that the government didn't do too well. And I think this coronavirus issue has really brought to the surface cracks in our society and in our
Mm,
foundation, right? But it's also shown that like we have a good we have a government in place that we can actually get money if we need it.
mhm.
Versus the states, I think this whole thing has really brought to the surface just all of the issues
Yeah.
that like how like people not been getting, like how do you only get like $1,200
Yeah,
this
one
whole,
time, and
like how
that's
does that, and
it.
some
I
people
was
weren't
like,
even
what
getting
the?
anything, like you're supposed to
Yeah.
get like how does that happen, like this really in my opinion brought to the surface the failures of just the cracks in the system that just
Yeah.
like America needs to do a better job.
Yeah. And they had the separate, like a separate program for companies specifically. And then they gave these companies millions of dollars. And one of them was like, what was it, Buffalo Wings or something? And it was a franchise. And then they gave the company the money. And then the intention was the company will pay the people.
Mm,
So give
mm.
the company the money, but then I don't think that necessarily happened. I think it's probably a better idea to give the money directly to the people.
I think so
Yeah,
too. I
yeah,
think so
I think
too.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me
So,
wrong. I think the one, like, even in Canada, I think over the last couple of days, what's kind of popped up is like
mm,
people who applied for CERB who apparently
mm,
never should have, but they were told to, and now
mm.
they're being asked to kind of like pay back some money that like.
Oh yeah.
So it's not, we don't have a perfect system, and I think for the business's perspective, I think I read somewhere that like if a company applied for like financial assistance and aid, right, because they weren't getting any business,
Yeah.
but at the end of the year the company has turned in like a huge surplus cash, like what, like should they owe the money back? Like I think there's these edge
Yeah.
cases that are kind of are starting to creep
Yeah.
up, but
Yeah.
ultimately I think that's being in a situation where you're asking people to give back some money is not a good thing, right? But
Mm,
that's probably a better situation than if you had a government that never got the money to people out in the first place,
yeah. Yeah.
which is what I think might have been happening in the States.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this, for me personally, like I've never had any like no country is perfect. Like
Hmm.
in Canada, if you talk to a native person, they're going to tell you that
Mm.
like, you know, like things aren't perfect. But I think this pandemic has shown, at least for me, that like at least we're not the States. Yeah, which probably isn't a
And
nice thing to say, but yeah.
right, we believe a lot of Americans came to Canada, probably to flee all the craziness that's going on uh,
Oh yeah,
during this, like, yeah, pandemic and election. Yeah,
that's true. That's
yeah.
true. That's true. Although I think, sorry, I think it's comparing yourselves to the States. I think is maybe that's just too low of a bar because I think Canada hasn't done as well compared to other countries.
Mm,
Like I think Korea has done very well.
yeah, I
New
think so.
Zealand obviously has done very well.
Apparently, there's like a second wave in Korea, and they're ready to lock stuff down.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So they had a good run, really long run.
So how when you
Yeah,
say second wave in Korea, what are we talking here?
I was like, I think like a 1 day case of like 800 or 1,000.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah, so they were like, oh, it's kind of going up there. So
that's
yeah,
not good.
yeah, no, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, man. Was there any other thoughts that you had on?
About the election,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it goes for the next 4 years, and I I think Trump's gonna run again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think
You got a lot of
I think it.
votes.
Yeah,
You got
yeah. So
like,
I think,
yeah. Uh,
yeah, and then I don't know if Joe Biden. I just like he's pretty old. I don't know if he will do a second term, but they always do. Most of them do. Like
but
a lot,
most they've
yeah,
never been this
almost all of
old.
them. Right, yeah, exactly. But
Trump.
we do have really good modern medical.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But you know, they say like being the president ages you. Like it
oh
wears
yeah,
you out. Like you know,
yeah.
like the stresses and stuff like that.
Obama, right? Like I think he aged pretty. Yeah,
They all do.
right.
If you look at all the photos of people like day
Yeah,
one and like
yeah,
the last day, it's
yeah.
and it makes
Clinton
sense.
looked pretty good. After a year, he still looked pretty good. Yeah.
Really,
Bush, Bush also looked pretty good.
really, eh?
Yeah, not the
Okay.
senior. I don't know, but senior also looked good. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. But
Yeah,
Obama, I could tell he aged quite a bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
here's one question that I was going to ask you. Like, so uh, we're obviously like the America and maybe even Canada to a lesser degree,
Mm,
very polarized.
mm.
Do you think that will continue? Like, is the gap between the two sides going to continue to grow, or I mean,
So I blame social media for this to a certain degree, just because of I think the algorithm of social media creates these echo chambers,
hmm,
and it pushes the content that that gets most attention from you. So I think it's like tricky for people to not get caught up in this, like being so polarized, because that's all you see.
hmm,
And especially um, with this pandemic, we can't have conversation face to face. A lot of people are just having they're just fighting on social media, and that's
hmm,
not how people are supposed to communicate, right? Like,
hmm,
this is not as good as in person, but like, this is more natural.
hmm,
Like, rather than me trying to go onto Facebook and see this comment that makes me angry, start
right,
going at it with
right,
that person. It's like, you don't even know that. Like, this is not even going anywhere, right? What's
hmm,
the point? So I think I honestly think, as social media, um, I do think to a certain degree they will try to fix this, not having these echo chambers, because I think the CEO of Twitter is very weary of this issue, and like they're like trying to fix this. I don't know how they would do it, just because I guess their profit model is like very closely tied to your attention, like how
yes.
much attention
The more you
you
click, the
give it to
more
them.
you, yeah, 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 yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because you are the currency. Like, our time and yeah, attention is the currency.
Yeah.
So, but with pandemic, once, because now vaccines are coming around, I think it's just it will loosen more as we have more in-person interaction, have a more meaningful discussion among people face to face. What do you think?
Were people having meaningful discussions before? Like, I don't like, I think, because if you're saying that like being at home is like driving some of the like, being at home pushes us to be on social media, which therefore could like drive more echo chambers. If that's I don't know if that's true, because these echo chambers existed before COVID. Like I don't know. I don't know. I think we should talk. We should spend one of these days talking about social media, because I think that's a big one. And like I think this election and previous election has shown that like social media can play a big part in elections. So I think it's how do you balance, like, if you're a company, like I don't know, we can kind of get into it. I think social media can be very scary. So I think I don't know. I just know that for me personally, as someone who is on like Instagram a lot, I scroll through Instagram. I don't really go on Twitter. I don't go on Facebook, but I also go on Reddit. So I guess the biggest two for me are Instagram and Reddit.
Reddit.
But I think for me, Instagram anyway, like what are the big ones you use?
Just Instagram and Facebook for friends, but I only literally have like, I'm one of those people who actually unfriend people if I don't interact.
Okay.
So like I have like 200 friends on Facebook. That's it.
Okay. So okay.
Yeah, and I don't try. I try not to go to like those other tabs where it's just like videos. They recommend you videos.
Oh yeah, on Facebook.
Yeah. Rather than like the post of your like the people,
the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So because that's a rabbit hole. So I try not to go to any other tabs. It's just like notification if anybody sent me a message, or it's just like,
okay, you're very specific with how you use it, right?
Yeah. But Instagram is just you can scroll forever, so it just never ends.
Yeah. But see, with Instagram, so the thing with Instagram, like for me, when it comes to social media, right? In my head, when I'm on a social media website, again, Instagram, Reddit, I don't go to those for information. Like I don't go to that for anything serious, if you know what I mean, right? Like people get a lot of news from social media. But it is what it is. For me, I think that's very weird. Like I open up like the Globe and Mail app and like I'll kind of scroll through that, or like like the idea, like I guess I get some news from Reddit. Like you go to reddit.com, like I don't have the Reddit app, but you go to reddit.com and then there's going to be like, you're going to learn a couple of things, right? Based on the front page. But like I was telling Jamina this, like when you go to like Instagram, don't go in there expecting to learn anything. Just understand that like for me, like Instagram is like junk food. You open it up, I go to it to see like basketball highlights, shoes, soccer stuff, workout stuff. Like I have a very specific use case for Instagram. Like I don't go to Instagram to look up anything news related whatsoever, because it's just so unregulated. And Instagram also knows once you start clicking on one or two of those, your feed just gets populated with more of the same shit, right?
Right.
So I guess kind of like you with Facebook, for me, I'm very like, when I open up Instagram, it's very like, it's to look at sports, it's to look at like people working out, like it's to look at pretty girls, like it's very like that's it. Like I don't go listen to, like I don't go to the news, like anything related to that one. It's very specific, because once you start down that rabbit hole, it's
and then Earth is flat. And Earth is flat all of a sudden.
Exactly. Next thing you know, Earth is flat, and everyone's a lizard or something like that. Another big one. Like I don't know. What about YouTube? Well, I'm very curious. Like how would like and sorry, like, and again, we can that thing that I've realized is very unique. Is like it was very interesting. Is like let's wind back when we were kids, when we were 15 years old, right? So about 15, 16, 17 years ago. if you went home after work 20 years ago, you turn like for educate like for entertainment,
Yeah.
you go home, you after school, you probably eat a little something, and then you probably watch
Uh-huh.
TV or something, right? To like
Uh-huh.
watch a TV show. I would probably come to the same. We probably have similar cable packages, so we probably have similar channels.
Yep.
So we might not watch the same show, but it's all kind of within the same like
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I find interesting is like if you go home now and you go to YouTube for your entertainment, or you go to Twitch, or you go to wherever, what the kids do, the content that you see is going to be so tailored and catered to what you watch. No one's probably going to watch the exact same stuff that you do, and I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like if I were to open up your phone on your Instagram and your YouTube, it's going to be 100% catered to what you like, and it's
Yeah.
going to be different than what's on mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like, I guess that's part of the reason why people have echo chambers, but I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You know, it would be pretty interesting. Like if people swap each other's like YouTube account, but not necessarily like not everything, but just like it would be pretty cool to see like if I can get access to the content that you get,
Yes.
not like access to your account, but just like let me get what's recommended for Hope.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't that be really cool?
That'd be kind of cool. That'd be really cool. That'd be really
Yeah.
cool. Apparently
Yeah.
TikTok is like one of those. Like TikTok,
Oh,
I don't have
see.
TikTok, but apparently like
Me neither.
but apparently TikTok's done their algorithm to find
Yeah.
out what you like is really good apparently. Like really, really, really good.
Maybe that's why there's so many users so quickly.
Apparently. Yeah. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about TikTok is, again, if you open up TikTok and I opened it, we would see totally different
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool. Like I
Yeah.
said, for me, honestly, like if you open up my Instagram, it's basketball shoes, hockey, basketball,
Yeah.
CrossFit.
Oh,
I-
it's fun. No,
It's fun,
CrossFit. It's like
it's fun, but I think it's because like I go to Matt Frazier's page a lot,
Ooh, yeah.
and it used to, for a little while, I have to admit, there was like a lot of like half naked girls, like a lot of half naked girls, but that's kind of toned down a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know what your Instagram feed is looking like.
It's just gonna be all fitness, fitness feeds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I do get some like good ideas. Like I've gotten some really good at home workout ideas from other people because people get really creative, right?
Okay.
And yeah. I saw one like, Chris Bumstead. The Canadian.
Yeah, the Canadian
stud.
Mr.
Yes.
Olympia guy,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I saw him doing some tricep, like skull crusher with the couch, and I was like, I never thought of that. I should do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
good. That's
yeah.
good.
So
That's
yeah.
good. Yeah, I think we
man.
should spend one of the times on social media because that's
I think
really
so.
interesting. I think
Absolutely.
That's a good one.
Yeah. We're gonna go on for a while on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, dude, I think we can leave it there for today. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
No. Good chat.
Good chat. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll do it next weekend? Christmas weekend next weekend.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right.
All right,
sir.
Have a good week.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop.